You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 236 of Horsemanship Radio, brought to you by HandsOnGloves.com, the all-in-one revolutionary bathing, grooming gloves. Horsemanship Radio is a part of the family of the Horse Radio Network, and I've got a little treat for you, and she comes from Hollywood acting royalty. This is Debbie Laux, and you're listening to the Horsemanship Radio. Thanks for joining us. Horsemanship Radio airs on the 1st and the 15th of the month, and I have my producer, Jen, with me today. You're my comic relief today.
Comic relief.
You are. We're kind of like, this is like a serious episode we have here. So
no, it's not serious.
You don't think so?
Kansas, our first guest, is lovely.
Yes.
She is lovely. I can't wait for everybody to hear about her amazing career as a trick rider. She has some really interesting insight because I really know pretty much nothing about trick riding. And she has some lovely, interesting insight on how trick riding at its very essence is so different from more common disciplines, and yet also requires the same level of discipline and skill and practice, but it's such a different, and she gives a really interesting global view of what the trick riding that she does is, and also some of the really interesting non-riding stuff that she's involved with that is helping people. So
horsey.
Yeah, I think today's episode really looks at the big picture of why it's important for horses to be in our lives. Yeah. She's
doing so much. It makes me feel like I'm standing still.
You feel a little bit like a slacker hanging out with Kansas.
She's amazing.
Yes.
She's amazing. And we also have Dr. Roos back too. I'm excited to have her back.
Yeah, you're gonna have a moment in today's show. Forewarning here. There's going to be a moment in today's show.
You're going to fall asleep.
That you might fall asleep in the best possible way.
Yes, exactly. On purpose.
On purpose. So let's get right to our first guest, but we're not going to do that till after we hear from our title sponsor.
Our title sponsor, Hands On Gloves, who support us and are our reason for being here, actually have a little innovation that you were telling me about with Nigel.
Yes, Nigel. This was inspired. I was watching some of the videos over on the Hands On Gloves YouTube page.
That's cool. Yeah.
And it has great ideas for using your hands on gloves if you ever want to spend a little time on YouTube, and who doesn't want to do that? In the wintertime, Nigel does not get clipped because his hair coat doesn't really get very thick, and he lives out of doors. It's a very light winter coat, and that's a real struggle in the winter because you want to get deep down into the hair when you dry them off, because what can happen is you can get rain rot if the top of the hair dries before the skin does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all used towels to dry our horses off. You swipe back and forth, but that's it. It doesn't get to the skin. It only dries the top.
It does.
So you take the old hands-on gloves, which you've got on anyway, because that's what you were using to scrub your horse.
You washed it with. Yeah, that's right.
Just grab a towel, toss it on your horse, and you dry the horse using your gloved hand, and those little bumples on the gloves get down between the hairs and dry the skin off. It's awesome.
It's awesome. And they love it. I mean, who doesn't like to be snuggled in a blankie?
If you give them a good once over with a towel and your hands-on glove, then when you do throw the cooler over top, you've fluffed up all that hair.
Yes.
So that it can allow the moisture from the skin to come up through. If the hair's mushed down flat, it's going to do its job of keeping things just the way they are. So grab yourself a pair of hands-on gloves from HandsOnGloves.com or your local tack retailer. You can find them everywhere. They come in lots of different sizes and colors.
Yep.
And give it a try for yourself.
Kansas Carradine spent a lot of her youth at Riata Ranch, one of the only trick riding schools in the world. She traveled across the U.S. and beyond to countries like Australia, France, Mexico, Spain, and Norway, wearing a cowboy hat and displaying trust and bravery on a fast-running horse. It was this unique acrobatic riding career that placed her under the big top as an elite circus performer and into the pages of Sports Illustrated, Western Horsemen, Cowboys and Indians, and the LA Times. And her roping skills were seen in Disney's Hidalgo, on MTV, ESPN, CBS, and countless sporting events around the world, including the World Equestrian Games. We know those. And Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee, and several appearances at Equitana USA, Australia, Equifest in New Zealand. Although raised in a rodeo arena, Kansas developed her unique style while touring with the critically acclaimed equestrian show Cavalia. Well, welcome, Kansas Carradine, famous person that you are. I'm so happy I got to meet you a couple weeks ago with Dad here at Flag Is Up Farms. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Debbie. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, that was a great opportunity that just kind of organically appeared, and I was so happy to meet Monty, of course, and you, and see the facility as well. That was such a treat.
Well, it was a pleasure, and I'm glad it was a happy accident because I want to have you back some more too. But more often, people chase you down because you're traveling all over the world doing wonderful things on horseback and with horses. And so I wanted to get to know you a little bit. And the first thing I wanted to touch on, though, is that you have so many years now of using horses in your world, right? And they accept you in a very kind way. I watched a lot of video of your performances. You're pretty darn good with a rope too, by the way, I must say. Trick roping is something you have to spend hours and hours and hours doing, and I can tell that was something you did probably walking to school. I don't know how you did it, but you learned a lot. But your horses just seem to be very accepting of everything, audiences around them, but not dull, not dulled to the energy around them. And I believe when I watch you perform, whether it's Cavalia or whether it's, on a YouTube video that was put together, the horse is very much with you and not excited by the audience or anything. It's very much at liberty. And so I wanted to go into that a little bit with you first about your horsemanship.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that you're highlighting something that sometimes I end up extracting when I have a conversation with people, is that, the goal when I'm working with a horse and finding that partnership and that unity is not so much in having desensitization so that the horses, are dull to everything or just kind of numbed out, because we want them to keep their sensitivity and be looking out and be aware of things, but to also be have that ability in a way to multitask. And I call it sometimes also switching languages, like they can listen to us and they can hear what is around, like they can be polylingual. In terms of the freedom, we have this conversation about trick riding. It really is at liberty because basically once you teach, a pattern, you're basically not able to be in control of the horse. It's a difference between trick riding and, say, vaulting, where you're also doing gymnastics on horseback, and that has a beautiful skill and partnership of blending your motion with the motion of the horse. But trick riding takes it a little bit beyond, where your horse is really running full speed at liberty. And so you don't have often even your legs on either side. You don't sometimes have your seat. And so you build this relationship that is on trust and understanding. And I believe there's a lot of an energetic connection and component that is part of that bond that really, you become like a centaur when you're riding a horse. You really make that blend.
Yes.
And you allow the horse to have the freedom. I explain also, especially in trick riding, they need to have their head and neck for balance. So they have a natural headset. Sometimes their nose might be a little bit to the outside as they're, nose to the right as they're tracking to the left. So we can't always have them on a bend because they need to balance for us. And all of those things are very subtle intricacies that we give the horse the freedom to really care for us. Because oftentimes they have to counterbalance. So they need to have the freedom to be able to put themselves in the position that is best. And every horse is built differently, so they all have a little bit subtle nuances. And when we get into the opportunity, whether it's in Cavalia or in other shows, a lot of times we're creating something that's totally unique because there isn't really this standard of show, judge, and competition.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to improvise with the gifts, talents, and uniqueness of each horse and rider. And so something that might be different, we can actually use that to our advantage. And I love that aspect because we're really feeling into the present moment and seeing like how can we focus on what's right as opposed to what's wrong. You know, I tease that sometimes in different competition models, you have to force a horse to be in a particular to fit a particular ideal, right? And sometimes it's kind of round peg, square hole. But the beauty of being in the entertainment aspect is a lot of times we're like, well, this horse isn't really suited as a Roman horse, but gosh, they really are great for trick riding. Or this horse has a funny personality. It's not really going to be someone that you'd trust to hang off and tie yourself on at high speeds. But boy, they have a lot of expressive personality and they love to join up and they're a great Liberty horse. So I think it's a wonderful in aspect of, you know, the many disciplines in the horse world where we really get to allow the horse to be an individual and show their personality.
And those individuals often, like Cavalia was a type, right? It wasn't you could just pick any horse out of the crowd. You really had a look and a type. Yet within those breeds, there was some Iberians and some different breeds, but within those, did you find all those personalities too?
Well, I'd say yes. Yeah. I mean, It's funny because a lot of people won't be able to see the subtle nuances. You know, for example, I was talking to my friend Sylvia Zerbini. She would work with all the Arabians. I think now she'll do Liberty with like 13 Arabians. Yeah. Some people won't even be able to tell them apart. Yeah. But boy, Sylvia can see every little unique personality and their special temperaments and the way that they need to think and how they can be introduced to an idea. And so I think a lot of people are only used to seeing a horse in a particular role, or we could say maybe a breed that they're used to, saying, well, those quarter horses, they're always working cows, or, those Iberian, Spanish, Lusitano horses, they're always doing dressage. And then actually, when it comes down to it, we're like, actually, they really like to do some other things too. They really like to do the Liberty, or they end up being great, Roman teams as well. Yeah. So we're able to still give them that latitude, I would say, which is unique, and let them kind of go outside of the box, if you will.
Yeah. And people still love to watch the performances, don't they? I mean, this is a world in fast-paced entertainment, CGI, and all this stuff. But there's nothing like the honesty of a horse and a performance that it's just still people flock to see that. And I hope we can get back to that, the post-COVID times. But do you feel like there is still a journey for that, a pathway for that?
Oh, absolutely. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine in the horse stunt world, and we can, especially those who've been around animals and horses, we can kind of see when we switch into CGI and films, and it's not the same, because when you see a real human in partnership with a real animal doing something that seems superhuman, it is just so magical, and it really draws you in. And so you see the connection, you see the effort, really being at the edge of kind of a real risk, perhaps. And that just carries so much more gravity. It has just a deeper meaning. And when we see that live and we can see things executed, and even if it's not dangerous, but just things that really have a high level of excellence or partnership, and that unity and harmony and all those qualities are present, you really feel that. And I find it so much more impactful. And it's the reason why, when we were touring with Cavalia, there was 2,000 people every night under the big top there to see those horses. And that it becomes such a powerful live experience. So I'm a big fan of the magic of the live entertainment, because it also allows those, like the accident, you could say, or surprise moment of me coming onto your farm, onto your ranch.
Right.
There's spontaneous moments that can occur. And again, I really feel like it's important to preserve this special art that has been cultivated for really millennia of humans and animals, and humans and horses. But it's not just humans and horses. I've actually been reflecting on this a lot. You mentioned that I travel around, and so this year I was actually in Australia for quite a while. My husband was working on a picture there. And we ended up getting introduced to a beautiful family that has a lot of history in working with training animals, even exotics like the elephants and the big cats. Yeah. And it really made me present to the fact that the animal husbandry and the animal whisperers of all species, that's such an art form. Yeah. And it really is. I think in the European model, we think a lot that humans and horses are so intrinsically linked, in the culture and in the history. But in other parts of the world, it was humans and elephants, or humans and camels, or humans and yaks, So all of the magic and the wisdom, somebody like your father, he's such a wisdom keeper, because all of that is so important, I believe, to preserve. And it's really special when you get to witness it live.
Well, and obviously not falling far from the tree, your two daughters, we should say too, are both involved with horses. And I think I can say that fairly. I think they would agree with that. They were here with you, Phoenix and Bodhi. Yeah. And I believe they're at least going to be doing some performing in the future, but I don't know. What are they thinking these days? They're so smart, actually, though. I mean, yeah. Phoenix is going to be
my girls. My older daughter is Phoenix. She's 17 now, and my younger daughter is Bodhi, and she's almost 14. She'll be 14 in a couple weeks. And both of them were raised on the Cavalia tour and had, they probably saw the show thousands of times. Yeah. So they have a different idea also of what is possible with horses, and their starting ground is a totally different place than most people. And then they also have this great, awareness of the importance of the relationship, the bond, the communication, the compassion, and really that subtle qualities that are beyond trying to, I would say, just fit into a normal mold. Yeah. And I just finished actually a training session probably an hour ago, working with some brand new horses that have never done any trick riding before with my daughter. And we've found such a system that works so well because, I find a lot of people can understand horses just treat kids sometimes differently. Mm-hmm. And so when my kids were little, I was around a lot of hot horses and they didn't really have a chance to ride. So the best solution that I could find is I would be working horses like long reining them or lunging and things. And I put the kids on and just have them hold on to the rings of the surcingle and just say, okay, sit on. And they would just learn their seat. And that was just kind of a way that I could kind of pack them around and give them some time in the saddle. And then over time, I said, okay, well, I'll show you a little bit of, the basic trick riding things. And the horses would be able to slowly build weight or bearing weight with the younger and smaller, lighter rider than with me getting on. And I thought, this is kind of cool. So we kind of developed a system just organically together as a family. And we're able to kind of implement that anytime that we are starting a new trick horse. And we just got done with this training session, and my older daughter, Phoenix, was helping me. And she says, Mommy, I still think it's amazing. We come up here, we don't know them at all. And then 30 minutes, we really get a lot of stuff done. And it's because we have a reliable system and routine, like any, horse trainer will agree and attest to, is you have to have a little bit of a game plan. Mm-hmm. And that reliability, I think, that the horses feel from the two of us understanding the goal and sending that out, again, really energetically, and always with the same understanding that we never want to add pressure. We always want to kind of take it off and just make the situation very relaxed and very light and very easy to understand. Sometimes I say we keep it simple, stupid, so that it's so easy that it's almost boring. Like, oh, really? This is all you want me to do? Okay. And that's kind of the attitude that I like for the horses to start to accept, to continue to move while we bring a leg over and try to stand on the side. Because often that's obviously they've been trained to when the rider loses a little bit of their balance, to stop and wait for the rider, and that's great. But then I come in and actually give a whole different idea. And so my girls and I, one summer, Phoenix had come away saying, in a 6-week run of doing clinics or something, I think they said they rode like 22 horses, and they were like 8 years old, So it's been really fun, and I really enjoy being able to pass on something that is so rare and unique, because it is hard to find anybody to teach you anything about doing that level of acrobatic riding on horses.
I can't imagine. Yeah, well, we had mentioned in your bio that you were at Riata Ranch, which is very niche-y. I mean, everything is niche-y that you do pretty much, between trick roping, trick riding, performance, high-level gymnastic performances, all that. Most people don't see people in the grocery store every day that do that, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to get a little peek into that life, but I'm glad you're so open source about it. I'm glad that you share so much with so many people. But I think I almost hear you evolving too, in that I know that you have sort of your own style now, because starting off in the more rodeo arena and Western look, but then going Cavalia has his own style. I don't even know what you would say about that. Elaine would probably have your husband would probably have a better definition of what that would be for us. But anybody who has seen the show, and I hope that you can still get DVDs of it and a way to see it.
Yeah. And there's always lots of videos on
lots of videos,
YouTube and things
too. Yeah. So to see I know it's not live, but to see the fascinating way that those creative minds think, like your husband and yourself. So what do you think your style is evolving to? We'll get to what I think you're going to do with horses in the future, but what do you think your style is evolving to?
Well, it's interesting, because when I began in the rodeo world, there was no opportunity to develop your own opinion, I guess. I mean, I heard a lot of times, and I think it was useful, and your dad probably came from the same era, this comment where we say, it's not my way, it's the way. There's only one way to do something, and this is the right way, and there's a wrong way. And being in Cavalia gave me the opportunity to work with a lot of other professionals from around the world, and to see that, gosh, there's a lot of different ways. And some of them are really effective. And for example, there's all kinds of different things you can say to stop a horse. Some people hiss to him. Some people will whistle. You can say a whoa. There's all kinds of different things. You can train a horse to move away from the whip, or you can use the whip as a draw. And then obviously you can stop a horse by pulling on his face, or you can use your breath and use your seat and not even touch the reins. So that is just one example of specific technique, and how there's lots of different ways to do things. And I think that overarching philosophy of being open-minded is really what started to happen when I was involved in a more international equestrian community. So certain people from Europe have different dogmas that they come in with, and the Western riders will come in with other dogmas. And then basically breaking down all of those dogmas and seeing what works in the moment, to me, is a sign of mastery. And there's certain things that you want to stick with because they're tried, tested, and true. But anybody will say, I mean, in 85 years, I'm sure your father's is still finding horses that surprise him, and that allow him to find, to use his imagination, and to be curious, and be resourceful. So I think, more than a specific style, I'm constantly trying to be aware of where my dogma or judgments are prohibiting me from really listening to the moment. I'm like, what does this horse need right now? But I started out as a kid riding on the beach, and then doing a little gymkhana. And then I went into the hunter jumper world and learned how to sit up tall, heels down, shoulders back, rein in each hand, and jumped a bit. And then I wanted to go into eventing. So I already had kind of a little, I would say, a sting in me. And then I got railroaded into doing a summer camp in the Central Valley, and was at Riata Ranch. And that turned into, as we kind of know and look at my history, the place where I really had my foundational exposure. But the hunter jumper world, the English world that I had, made me a more well-rounded rider. When I was turning back into sitting on my seat and having more of a cow horse influence, or rank cow horse influence, which is more of what Tom Meyer in Central Valley was exposed to.
Yeah.
So all of those kind of, again, being polylingual, learning many different disciplines helps you so much, because then you can become adaptable and you can apply the right tool or the right medicine for the right situation.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
I love what
where
people
I'm looking.
Yeah, I agree. I think people should copy you. I think people should take inspired by you, because the thing that I see that's so useful are these disciplines that are coming, like Western equitation. Did we talk a little? I think we did talk about that when we were with you, that we'd had a show here and also a clinic or two in this last year. And I know it's been around. We've had people on the radio on this show that have been at it for 20 years. So it's not a new thing, but it's kind of a new thing. 20 years in the multi decade. Gosh, how old is the horse business? I don't know, at least 6,000 years old.
Xenophon, at least, yeah.
Yeah, Xenophon.
He was writing about it
a long time.
2,000 years ago.
And so anything in 20 years developed is pretty new. And I think that is from that open-mindedness. So I love that you attach that to our industry, because sometimes we're called a little old-fashioned, but we're not necessarily, not if we do it.
And I just want to say, at the same time, we're open-minded, and then we can also really respect a lot of these, like I said, tried, tested, and true safety or techniques or just wisdoms that really have a lot of validity. Frank Grello is a dressage trainer who lives in Canada. He imported a lot of Lusitanos back in the day and really worked under Nuno Oliveira. And so the French classical dressage traditions and the Portuguese classical masters, it's really that kind of lineage. And it really is a lineage. And I've learned so much from that kind of historical tradition. And he would often say, a lot of the writing that you have is intuitive or is instinctual, but this is education. And the distinction there I thought was so beautiful and profound. And this is after I'd done Cavalia, and I wanted to go back and improve more on my dressage, which we did a lot of in Cavalia, but that we also were doing all these other things, right? And so spending time with him to really understand that refinement, that there's instincts that we have that we actually have to override, that there's intuitions that we have to be able to slow down our reactivity and say, okay, but really, where is the balance here? Where is those very subtle weight distributions that can make so much of a difference?
That's good. And that does take years sometimes too. And I know what I love about the equestrian business too is that you could have somebody walk on your property that's 25 years old, and how many professions can you say this? Like, how long you been at this horse thing? Oh, 15 years, and they started at 10. Of course they did. And I love that, just like learning a language, you do that, it's such an advantage to start young too. So I really feel like if we can encourage the young people to try lots of different things in the beginning, and get them back on the beach, pull those girls off the beach and say, you're the future of what we're doing. I wanted to ask you about the equine guided education. You're a certified equine guided educator, and you are a certified heart math trainer, which I love the heart math concepts too. But you're starting to dedicate part of your life to that as well. And I did a little digging into an organization that you are a part of. And I must admit that we can talk about that organization, The Connected, because I'd never talked to anybody who had used horse therapy for Alzheimer's. So I'd love to hear some of this exploration that you're doing in that area.
Absolutely. So I'm really passionate about that. Back in 2006, when my oldest daughter, Phoenix, was born, I obviously took a little bit of a break, obviously just to have her. And I thought, well, this trick riding thing, I'm not going to be able to do that forever. And I'm always aware of the spiritual aspects and the energetic connection with horses. And I really started to hear more of the equine therapy was taking off, I would say, becoming much more commonplace.
Yeah.
And so I studied with a woman named Ariana Struzzi-Mizuchi, and she is in Sonoma County and started the Skyhorse certification program with equine guided education. Mm-hmm. And that's basically, there's a lot of different distinctions or different facets in that, but it's really being with horses and learning with them and from them. But it also incorporates the entire natural world. So it's really paying attention to the subtle energy of communication. Mm-hmm. It's the first time that I really was able to start to understand that my energy was influencing, not just conceptually, like we say, oh, the horse knows that you're scared, so don't be scared. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit more going on than even that. And to witness over and over again people having these dramatic shifts, transformations, healings, if you will, through those programs, it really blew my mind. And so I had always a desire to serve in that way. And when I learned to incorporate that into my training and into the shows that I did, it just became part of my horsemanship as well. And in private coaching, there was more of a component to really unpack kind of a little bit more of our psychology so that we can show up better and be clear communicators for our horses. Because most of the time when things have problems between horse and rider or horse and handler, there's just confusion. Mm-hmm. So that has helped me help the partnerships and improve those relationships. But then, fast forward, it's been about almost 15 years that I've been around doing that kind of stuff. And I've heard a lot about its use. We all have great equine therapy programs that help kids with autism and help veterans and those, getting over trauma or at-risk youth. Those are commonly highlighted. And I was approached one time, I guess it was just last year, by a woman from Connected Horse. And she was the program director named Evelyn, and she reached out to me and said, I know you've done a lot of nonprofit and charity work because I've done shows for Humane Society and for the Equestrian Aid Foundation and different things like that. And she said, we have an organization. We'd really like to see if you'd help us with some fundraising. And she explained to me these therapeutic programs that are workshops where those who have been affected with Alzheimer's or dementia mm-hmm. come out not just alone, but with their caregivers and experience these interactions with the horse in a group environment. And sometimes people who have lost the power of speech, who've gone nonverbal and may not even remember their loved ones' names, mm-hmm. Will have moments where everything really kind of comes back in the presence of the horse through these interactions.
Some lucid moments happen. Hmm?
Yeah, and the fact is, for some people, it's actually lasting. So even beyond those interactions, they start speaking full sentences again. They start to remember their loved ones' names. There's certain connections that happen, and we might not be able to explain it just now, but they are partnering with research institutes to be able to document and start to track and get some evidence-based research to explain a little bit what's happening. Okay. But we all know the benefits of being around horses, those who are in the horse industry. And what I love is that this is just giving another facet to the many different demographics that horses are helping.
Absolutely.
And when I heard about the program, I thought, absolutely anything that you want that I can do to help, I'm on board, because to me, this should be front page news.
Yeah. I mean, how many people we don't even know. I don't think how many people are affected by the aging process. Let's just call it that too. And keeping our brains. I know that I have a lot of horse gals, friends that are, 60s, 70s now, and they're not only keeping horses in their lives to keep sharp, but also taking up dancing lessons, anything that keeps your brain, I think, focused outside of our heads, and being able to, whether you can nurture something or whether you're just around it. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I'm just so glad to hear. And I'm glad to hear that there'll be some science behind it, because it feels like until you have, I'm not even sure I'm a big science fan anymore. Used to be more so, but when they have a good science trial behind something, I'm on board. I'm with them. So I'm glad to hear that they're doing some of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being able to have like more subtle instruments now, or more precise instruments, can give us, other research that we just couldn't do 50 years ago. Perfect. So I think it's a very exciting time. I think we're going to see more of that, and it's not surprising again. And I might mention that the people who come out for some of these workshops, it doesn't mean that they've had previous horse interactions before. They may have not been, horsey. Good. But there's still something, just being in the presence. And so this loops back to the conversation that you brought forward about the Institute of Heart Math, which I've also spent a lot of time studying and working in that research. And the Heart Math Institute, it's basically really focused on our autonomic nervous system and any changes in the autonomic nervous system that affect what's called our heart rate variability, or the HRV. And so that's getting a little sciencey since you talked about that. That's actually the beat-to-beat changes in our heart. So a lot of people, like me, for example, I always thought your heart was like a metronome, that it just kind of 60 beats per minute. It's always like clicking. But actually, we need to have the capacity to flex. When we take an inhale breath, it speeds up. When we exhale, it slows down. And that's one of the reasons why breath work is so effective to help bring us into present awareness. And it helps with riders, dealing with anxiety and helping to be able to create more. People will say it's like turning the volume down on a really heightened situation. It helps us open up our senses and increases our perception. So the Institute from Heart Math has been able to show, the heart is not only classified as a part of the cardiovascular system, but it also emits, an electromagnetic frequency that can be measured.
Exactly.
And ours is, in the range, if you spread your arms out, that's kind of our bubble. But a horse's field is much bigger. Of course, and a lot of horsemen will talk about this, right? We can be in their field and be in relationship with them much farther away. It doesn't just start when we're holding the lead rope or when we're on their backs.
Yes.
And so there's something about being in that relationship, in that field environment, that specifically when we activate like a renewing feeling, such as appreciation or care, that can shift our heart rhythms. And most people, when they come in the presence of a horse, they start to feel really in awe or appreciating the beauty. And that is enough to create a physiological reaction in us. And so there's a lot of evidence that I get really excited about, because it basically proves that, hey, horses are good for the soul.
See, told you. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
That's great. No, that's great. I love that whole exploration. I think this is going to be a really fun time. The next 50 years are going to be incredible for horses, I think, too. Pretty soon they'll be teaching us. How do people learn from you, Kansas? Do you put on clinics? Do you do you personal coaching?
Yeah. So you had mentioned like things have shifted in the live entertainment world, but it's allowed me to, for the first time, kind of be a free agent. And so I do give clinics both in the States and all over. Like I said, I was in Australia and New Zealand last year. And then I live in Canada, actually, on the East Coast. And so people can contact me either through like circuscowgirl.com, which is one way. I don't really do social media. I haven't had a social media presence, and I know it's really useful in the equine industry and building a business and all that, but that hasn't been my main way of outreach. It's really person to person, and I kind of follow the energy if something is really meaningful to me, like the Connected Horse. I gave a clinic for them and donated, all those proceeds to their programs. Nice. I'm doing something this weekend for the Compton Cowboys here in Los Angeles.
Yes, they're wonderful. Great.
Yeah, and then there's a summit that'll be taking place at the beginning of November, which is affiliated with another well-known podcast, the Journey On podcast, which is with Warwick Schiller.
Yeah, good.
And so we'll all be speaking there. And I've started to do one-on-one coaching sessions as well, specifically teaching the techniques of heart math for emotional self-regulation, because I see so many similarities between how we can be better for our horses as well as our human-to-human relationships. So it's not just for horse people. This really is something that I'm happy to kind of reach a wider audience, if you will, and help kids, who are stressed out from tests.
Right.
Or just personal relationship conversations. There's some great tools and techniques that I've been able to implement subtly for the last 15 years. And I decided, hey, I want to be able to offer this to others as well. So
that's great.
Kind of the new offering, since I still do perform, and obviously the roping is something that will never go away, and love Roman riding and trick riding. But I also just feel like this is allowing me to kind of widen the field of possibility, and like I said, open it up even beyond the horse community and the horse world.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I still feel like horses are in there somewhere. But yeah, but I'm glad you're stretching your wings a little bit too. And we're going to have fun seeing what all you do and watching your kids come up that way too. So really nice having you on the show. And we'll have this in the show notes any way that you want us to get a hold of you, either through me or if you want to, have other points of contact, we can put that in the show notes as well.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I really appreciate you having me on. It's amazing.
Kansas Carradine, you're amazing. Thank you for being on Horsemanship Radio.
Some people don't think horses and people communicate. We call those people not horse people. Not horse people don't know you and your horse share a unique bond, or that your horse knows they like your dogs. But not so much the barking. At Sentinel Horse Nutrition, we don't knock not horse people. We're too busy focusing on horse people's horses. With extruded nugget feeds for exceptional nutrition and formulas for every need, our wide choice of feeds makes it easy to find the fit for your horse's health. Find theirs at feedsentinel.com.
Dr. Sarah Roos serves as Equine Technical Manager with Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health. She is active in organized veterinary medicine, currently serving as the chair for the AAEP Horse Owner Education Committee and co-chair of the AAEP Internship Subcommittee. She previously served on the AAEP Board of Directors and the Veterinary Leadership Institute. In her free time, Dr. Roos enjoys riding her Holsteiner, Jilly. Well, welcome back. I can say that to Dr. Sarah Roos. How are you?
I am very well, thank you.
I'm so honored to have you on, and you're just a wealth. And so we heard that there was this new research done on the barn atmosphere. And I think everybody, has discussions about what should be permeating the barn, and depending on what time of day that happens. But I'm fascinated by this auditory therapy, let's call it maybe, or something. And I want to hear more about the angle. I just heard about Relax Trax, and I was dying to know more.
Yes, it is fascinating stuff. I will not disagree with you. And much like, you might fight over the car radio control, depending on who you're driving with. You Exactly. Are correct in barns sometimes, what all is playing. We don't necessarily think about, we think about it more for kind of the human enjoyment for the person who is in the barn. But there is a fair amount of research work that is out there on the effects of different type of music on horses, which, it's kind of one of those things like when you first hear it, you're like, that's kind of crazy. But if you think about it, anyone, again, who has watched a horse do, a musical freestyle or, have watched horses in action, they do have rhythms. They do kind of set themselves to various tempos, especially things like, musical freestyles and whatnot, to where it shouldn't surprise us, I guess, to some extent that music really does influence them.
I agree with you. Yeah. So that's cool that there's been studies on all of that too, because I was just thinking about, heart rates and adrenaline or cortisol levels or whatever. So we're not just talking about the stall. You took this research, or somebody did, out into the whole gammosphere of music. That's cool.
There's a bunch of different studies out there. Sometimes looking, within barns or other areas, kind of looking at quote unquote normal horses under stress, a variety of different measurables. So whether that is heart rate, whether that's cortisol level, some of them are even just, watching essentially recorded video loops of horses in stalls for kind of rest behavior versus, stress type behaviors, whether that's, pacing or those sorts of things, have all been looked at in a variety of different ways and with different I can't even just say music, but different things on the radio. Because there was actually a study that came out of Australia that, in looking at risk factors specifically for gastric ulcers, found that talk radio playing in the barn was a risk factor for gastric ulcers. I would argue that might be true in people as well. I don't know. But in horses, it appeared to actually be a risk.
Oh,
so
dear.
Anything that's playing.
Yeah. So was the science done? I'm just curious. Was the science done to figure out something that will create a relaxed environment in the stall, or was it more about the science? Like, would you take music out into the arena, and that would help? Was the science done on that as well?
So again, kind of several different things that are out there. The science specifically surrounding Relax Trax was done by Janet Marlowe, who is a composer that we worked with on this particular soundtrack. The research to substantiate kind of what tempos and what decibel levels and what essentially instruments horses like to listen to was actually done on horses in stalls. And so that was actually done on some race horses during stall rest, and specifically, again, kind of showed, again, certain predominantly tempos and frequencies did result in more restful behavior for horses, decreased cortisol levels, decreased heart rate variability. So those were all of the things that kind of informed then how we put together, I should say really how Janet put together this 10-minute Relax Trax soundtrack.
Oh, so it's 10 minutes. It's a loop that just plays over and over?
Yep, just 10 minutes. Yep, you can just rewind and redo. And it is one of the things, we get the question a lot, like, don't horses get bored of it? And people maybe get bored of it. Horses don't really seem to notice per se that it's a 10-minute loop.
I've actually listened to it.
Oh, you have?
And did you feel relaxed?
Yes, it has a soothing effect on your mentality.
Really?
But being a person who works with sound files, I made one that was an hour long.
Perfect.
And that's what you mean when you say you're going to make a loop of it. The actual sound file is quite short, but you just keep telling it. You either tell it to repeat on whatever device you're listening on, or what I did is I just made a big long one in my software. And
do
that
you
way
use it in the barn?
I use it in my headphones.
Oh, okay. So it's for you.
For me. I use it for me. I don't have a way to play it in my barn because I don't have a speaker in the barn. But I'm going to have to figure that out now. I'm going to have to steal one of Glenn's Bluetooth speakers and put it in the barn. I
was going to say, anymore, there's all sorts of little Bluetooth speakers.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we have about a half a dozen of them because they're real common giveaways at the symposiums he goes to. They're always in the grab bag. So I'm going to steal one of his and put it in the barn so I can play it for the horses. But I recommend anybody who is curious about it, it's available online all over the place.
Is that right? So,
if you just put in Boehringer Ingelheim Relax Trax, you get about 1,000 different hits.
Fun.
And download it to your favorite whatever player, and try it out for you. And one of the things I used it for initially, and this is not what it was intended for, but this is what I used it for initially. I tended to be a very tense rider because I'm an intense person. I want to get things done. I'm not got that type A thing going. So when I ride my horse and I'm feeling that, and I can't let it go, I'm almost wound up and I got to get things done right now. I can play that, and it can help me to remove that part of my brain waves so that when I'm riding my horse, I'm not transferring that type A crap to him.
And that's what I would love if you can get a Bluetooth that he also can listen to it.
I want to get him his very own headphones. I think he looks so cute in them.
You both on the trail.
That's what, all the horses, all show horses all wear earplugs nowadays, right? They all have these little puffy things.
We need to put question. Yeah.
We need to put them inside the earplug things.
Horses?
Yeah. Don't they have them? Did they have them, Sarah?
I don't know that they have any that actually play music through them. There are
so they're just plugs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody's got ear puffs. Yeah. I think we need to put little tiny earplugs, little tiny speakers in them.
Okay.
Yep. Of course, then when your horse tosses his head and they come flying out as all earplugs.
Everybody will hear what he's listening to.
There's going to be show rules now. No, you can't use Relax Trax in your class. So.
They'll somehow be testing horses before they go in the ring.
That's really cool that you did this research and then just put it out there to the universe for people to take advantage of.
Mhm.
And
It
that
is our gift to the equine world.
yeah,
That's
and who
cool.
doesn't need a little extra relaxation? See, you're the right person to be on the AAEP Horse Owner Education Committee because
That's right.
look at you guys go.
That's right.
Well, it is, again, I would encourage you to play at your barn. I play it at my barn for my horse. I've had, some of my friends at the barn play it for theirs. Even just, things like, horses that maybe don't love standing in the cross ties or a little bit nervous for the farrier, or there's just, other stuff going on that kind of has them a little bit rattled. It really does actually calm them down, and you'll see them yawn and kind of lick their lips and their eyes get a little bit droopy. So I think it is kind of fun to play and actually watch individual horse responses to it. And that kind of is our goal for it, really is. Like I said, especially things that we know are stressful. So again, whether that's farrier, vet work, body clipping day, whatever it might be that might be a stressor to your horse, if this is something that, can kind of help them get through that. We know people who, again, are figuring out speaker systems to play it in their trailers for their horses, while they're actually hauling. And some of it is creating kind of that sound bubble around that horse to block out other sound as well. So again, the tempo and the decibel and all that is soothing to the horse, but they do really seem to kind of hone in on what's directly around them. And again, I think we all know that, right? Like we talk to our horses when we can tell that they're getting kind of riled up about something in the distance. You talk to them and you soothe them and they start to listen to you. It's kind of the same with this music where, again, if there's, whatever in the distance, that seems to be kind of starting to stress them out, fireworks, thunder, whatever it might be. If you play this, they kind of hone in on it and it kind of fills their little brain with happy sounds instead of.
Do you use it in your clinic? That's brilliant. Yeah. Do you use it in the clinic?
Yeah, you certainly can. And again, we have that.
No, I mean, have you?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And Chili? I know that's your gal.
Chili loves it. I love that everyone knows my horse's name because I'm way too obsessed with him.
I was just thinking about Chili. Chili must have been like one of the guinea pigs.
He, in fact, has been the guinea pig. It also helps that he's very photogenic, so everyone likes to use him in lots of things.
Love it or anything.
Yes. But no, and actually, like for him, I play it. He lives up to his name. He's a pretty chill horse. But things like, rightfully, he doesn't necessarily love having his mane pulled before a horse show. So great, we play the music while we have to do things like that. And it does seem to kind of relax him.
That's nice. Yeah, that's really nice. Well, it could be chili like hot chili, but chill, I like that.
That is true.
Yeah.
On our jumper days, he's chili pepper. On our
I see.
Chili.
Different levels of spice for chili.
Exactly.
That's right. But I like that he's just chill. Take the E off. He's just chill.
Yeah.
Well, really fun. I think it's a fun idea. I love that you put science behind it because we're all geeky here anyway and love our science background. And I love that you come and share with us, Sarah, too, about that and your horse. And
I want you to all go play it and tell us what your horse is.
We're going to put it out to the Horsemanship Radio listener universe now, too.
Perfect.
And people will have to tell us how it's working for them. Thanks.
Yes. Well, I look forward to hearing how relaxed all horses everywhere are.
Well, now, of course, this begs the question, what does the relaxed Trax sound like? Ha, 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 ha! Well, sit back and enjoy a few seconds of it. So here you go. What do you think? Do you feel relaxed?
Oh, I fell asleep.
We chatted about this a little while ago when it first came out. Of course, there were press releases everywhere about it. So we chatted about it a little bit on one of the shows. I don't remember which one. So of course I had to go and listen to it, and I downloaded it and I have it on my computer. And I thought, that's not just relaxing for horses. I found it very relaxing.
I think it's mammalian, maybe.
Maybe. It would be interesting to do tests to see if reptiles find the same thing. How do you know if a reptile's relaxed? There you go.
Having reptiles around.
Interesting. And you know what I found interesting when I listened to it the first time? I expected it to not feel like music to my human ear. I just thought it would be tones and just sounds that the animal found relaxing. But it's very musical.
Music. Yeah, I had read how they developed or how they wanted to develop and then what they did. And it was very much a musical score. But I didn't know, like you, I thought, well, maybe it would have like beeps and bops and stuff in places where I wouldn't expect it or something. I don't know. Something a little, different than just soft music. But, anything to stop the pa music that's happening at the barn right now, I'm all for it.
We will also put a link to the sound file in the show notes. It is on YouTube. It's a sound file, but it's on YouTube. And if you just type in Relax Trax, relax spelled the normal way, and Trax, it's there. You can download it. It's free, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if nothing else, go listen to it and see if you find it to sort of be calming in a very pleasant kind of way.
Definitely.
And now I want to get earbuds for Nigel.
Yes. Does that work? Good. Let's do it.
Whisper the language of the herd. Listen, you don't have to say a word.
It's time for Jamie Jennings to fetch an email from Monty Roberts' inbox and share a morsel of Monty's wisdom in a little segment we like to call Ask Monty.
Leave this world a better place than mine. The magic in the language of the herd.
Dear Monty, how can I find the patience to repeat training exercises again and again with the horses? And how do I recognize progress? Monty's answer. A strong belief in my concepts gives me the patience to repeat procedures again and again. I know that they will ultimately be successful, and once you come to that conclusion, it will be much easier for you to express the patience required in this effort. The loss of patience, particularly in nonviolent training, is counterproductive. I have had a lifetime to discover that losing one's patience will eventually be viewed as a mistake. It is my opinion that we should practice the art of observing our mistakes, allowing us to learn from them. It is my strong recommendation to every horse person that they learn the language equus. Once we know the instinctual pattern of the horse's brain and the way horses communicate, we are far less likely to experience a loss of patience. The dictionary of the language equus can be found in my textbook, From My Hands to Yours. A profound statement made to me in this context was, a good loser is a consistent one. We must not be good losers. This does not mean that we fall on the ground, pounding our fists, acting in an immature fashion. We must, however, feel the hurt of losing in order to be motivated to change our tactics. We should replay mental videos of the procedure in question. When we view ourselves losing patience, we should carefully note the outcome. I have found that over the decades that any time I lost my patience, my rerun of the mental video would show that my horse and I took a step backwards. Horses are forgiving individuals, and if we are quick enough to rectify our mistakes, they will soon be back on a positive track. Recognizing progress is certainly an art form, and I have to assume that each of us has some idea of what we want from our horses, and thus can recognize the positive track. Learning the language and understanding the nature of the horse will fortify your confidence. These bits of knowledge will support your resolve to stay the course, watching closely for improvement that you can appropriately reward.
For more of these insights into good horsemanship, go to MontyRoberts.com and click on the words Ask Monty at the bottom of the page.
Hi, I'm Monty Roberts, and I'm dedicated to training horses without pain. You can learn to do it too on my Equus Online University. Western, English, the beginner, or the advanced rider. It doesn't matter. You can connect with other students online too, on our forum, and there's a new lesson every week. It's a lifetime of learning for you on my Equus Online University at MontyRoberts.com.
Where in the world is Monty Roberts?
Monty is looking forward to meeting some new friends, two-legged and four-legged. Now we're in August, so we have a Mountain Trail Play Day, the 5th of August, and then 7 through 19 is the introductory course of horsemanship, and that breaks into modules. So the 7th through the 9th is the introductory course of Module 1, then 10 through 12 is Module 2, that's the join-up course, 14 through 16 is Module 3, the long lining, and then 17 through 19 we have the introductory course Module 4, which is the preparation for the intro exams. Then see you in the fall.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And if you couldn't remember all of that, you can find all of that and more at montyroberts.com. That's the official website. This podcast can also be found at montyroberts.com. It's your one-stop shop for everything Monty Roberts. You really don't need to go anywhere else. But if you have the need or the desire to hang about on social media, Monty Roberts has a Facebook page, Monty Roberts, the one with the little blue check mark. And on Twitter, it's Monty_Roberts. And guess what? On Instagram, it's Monty_Roberts.
Robert. There's a theme.
There's a theme going there. It's all the same.
Yeah, but you know what? We do a little different. So, those that love Instagram like me, think pretty pictures. So, and many thanks to our sponsors, too, that make this program possible. And that is HandsOnGloves.com. We also have Kent Feeds. Happy to have them aboard. And MontyRobertsUniversity.com. Be sure to visit all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network at www.horseradionetwork.com. Until next time, have many happy horse hours.